there, I'm Sage and welcome to Sage's Illustration. Today we've got a special project that I can't wait to start. This video, we're going to be making Lucy Maclean from Fallout. Fallout has been one of my favorite games since I was a teenager, and my friends and I were over the moon when they announced that Fallout was getting its own show. So to celebrate the games and the show, I will be turning the show's main character Lucy into a doll. So let's get started! To start us off, we need a body. For this project, I've chosen an Ever After High doll body, and for the head we're going to be using a G3 Laguna Blue. And I picked Laguna Blue because of how large her eye molds are in Generation 3, and I thought that her face would fit Lucy pretty well. But first things first, off with her face! Although Laguna's eye molds work well for Lucy's face, her webbed ears certainly do not. So let's chop them off! I used a razor to round off her ears and carve out the inside of her ears so that they looked more, well, ear-shaped. Cutting her ears was actually more difficult than I thought it would be, but after some fiddling I got them to a point that I was happy with, and I could finally move on to painting her head. Creating a color that matched the skin of the body was incredibly annoying, since I know little to nothing about color theory or painting. Truly a match made in hell. Initially I thought that the first color I did would work if I later used pastels to lighten it, but I quickly realized that that was never going to happen. So I tried one more time to get the color right, and I'm so glad that I did because this color matches so much better. And now that I've got the head the color that I wanted, I'm going to be painting the scalp brown to match Lucy's hair when I add it later. I'm also going to be blushing the head to add more depth to her face before I begin the actual face-up. Now that our little Lucy has been blushed and sealed with a thick layer of Mr. Super Clear, we can begin to map out the face up with a pencil. I like to use pencils to sketch out my guidelines just because it's easily visible and also easily erasable in case I make a mistake, which is often. thought that Lucy's eyes were a brown color, but on closer inspection, her eyes have a lovely green about them. So for this doll, I decided to lean into that by mixing green into all the browns that I was using for her eyes. that's left is to add her eye shines and add a thick layer of Mod Podge to give her eyes and lips that glossy sheen. Here's her face! The face-up itself I think looks good, but I don't think she really resembles Lucy yet. Maybe her clothing, hair, and accessories will help finish the look. I cannot wait to see how she looks when she's all finished! With her face done, we can finally work on her hair. Off camera, I made wefts of some leftover brown yarn that I thought matched nicely, and with that out of the way, we can start her ponytail. First things first, I roll up a weft and dip it into my Mod Podge before carefully placing it where I wanted it. Then I waited 12 business days for it to dry. In all honesty though, it did take about an hour to dry with me carefully holding it in place so it didn't move or fall off. This led to me watching a movie as my fingers slowly began to cramp. Finally, when the ponytail base had completely dried, I moved on to adding more hair wefts around the ponytail to give it more shape. To make the edges of the ponytail look nice, I placed a large hair weft on backwards, and then I let it dry completely, and then used something like a miniature hair tie to hold it in place and train the weft to stay. Unfortunately, I did end up losing some footage, but I repeated the same process for the bangs, this time using a large hair tie to train the bangs to stay down. Now it's time for a haircut. I tried my best to carefully cut and style her hair into the curtain bangs that we see Lucy sporting in the show. To help tame her bangs, I used an extra toothbrush with copious amounts of hairspray, resulting in this. Also, don't mind that bald spot on the top. I failed and also ran out of yarn wefts, so she's just gonna be a little bald on the top, you know, a little radiation sickness got to her or something. I am so happy with how she turned out, aside from the radiation sickness. But Lucy here is still naked. So let's fix that. It's time to make Lucy her vault suit. To start off, I grab a spare doll to use as a mannequin. Then I bust out the cling wrap and cover the doll in a very thin layer while securing it down with masking tape. This tape is going to help us make a pattern for her vault suit. After the cling wrap is placed, I begin taking chunks of masking tape and covering the doll until there is no more cling wrap showing through. Then I whip out a Sharpie and start tracing lines where I want the seams to be. These lines also act as a guide for where to cut later. Now that this doll looks like a mummy, I can carefully cut off the masking tape suit. With these pieces, I can lay them flat, trace them on some paper, add a seam allowance, and then cut this pattern onto this blue fabric that I have. And now, with the magical power of editing, boom, we have the base of our jumpsuit. Although I am very happy with my little jumpsuit, it looks nothing like a vault suit. So let's fix that. Vault suits have a bit of a weird texture, so to replicate that, I cut out small pieces of fabric, glue down the backs, and use a tiny blue marker to add more details before gluing that down onto the suit. And ta-da! The suit is looking way better already. However, it's not a vault suit without the signature yellow lines running along the suit and the large vault numbers on the back. To add this effect, I first painted several layers of white paint before adding in the yellow over top of it. And for some reason, the blue pen that I used had a vengeance for me and continued to show up through the paint even after several layers. I did what I could to cover it, but there are definitely still parts where it's visible, unfortunately. I also created this tiny tank top on the side to fit snugly under Lucy's vault suit. Now that we've got the base of the jumpsuit finished, we can move on to the armor and accessories. Originally, I had wanted to start with the armor and save the accessories for last, but unfortunately the foam that I found for Lucy's armor had other plans. After trying several times to glue the foam into place and failing, I resorted to sewing on the foam, and after this point, I finally came to terms with just how hideous this foam looked, and I decided that I could not use it. Since I was running out of time for this project, I quickly ordered some super thin faux leather and moved on to the accessories. But before busting out the clay, I decided to alter the jumpsuit arms so that they were thinner so that the new leather I ordered would lay nicer and flatter. Since I'm a little awful at sculpting and short on time, I decided to bust out the model magic so that I wouldn't have to bake anything or wait a few days for it to dry. After I let everything dry for a day, I painted everything but the shoe bases in a light gray coat of acrylic before slapping on a good layer of silver pearl to make everything look like chrome. Although the sculpting is a bit janky, I love how everything looks with a good coat of paint. Finally, the faux leather I ordered arrived and it was perfect. Not only did the color match way better, but the material was ultra thin and translated to doll armor way better. I wasted no time starting the armor. After cutting the arm braces to size, I sewed them directly onto the vault suit, doing my best to make the seam look nice. After some consideration, I decided to leave out some pieces of the armor, not only to save time, but to avoid the doll looking bulky and overdone, especially in the joint areas like the elbows. Now that all the armor is done, we can glue our Pip-Boy to her arm and her ammo to her little belt and begin the shoes. I had the absolute worst time making these shoes. Not only was the material difficult to work with, but my lackluster cobbler skills were definitely showing. But after failing once, I left it for a few days so that I could brainstorm. After that, I came back with a hot glue gun and a dream. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. These boots, if you could call them that, look like hot garbage made by a raider wasted on jet and false confidence. But Lucy here doesn't have any other footwear alternatives, so shoddy raider boots it is. For the final touches, I add laces by using some browed embroidery thread and a needle. They certainly don't look great by any means, but for being my first handmade pair of doll shoes ever, I'll take it. With those shoes out of the way, I can finally glue on the remaining details and get our completed doll all dressed up. I cannot wait to see how she looks. Here is our final doll! I absolutely love, hideous boots aside, how she turned out. I had so much fun bringing this project to life, and I cannot wait to have my little Lucy next to all my other Fallout merch. I'm heavily considering turning the Ghoul and Maximus into dolls too, so let me know in the comment section down below if you want to see me make more Fallout-inspired dolls. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you like this doll, leave a like and consider subscribing if you want to see more projects like this. Have a great day!